Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 61.
Congratulations, you showed up. Give yourself a high five in celebration of your success. Welcome to the Cashflow Diary, where new and experienced investors come to take confident action towards their goals. Your host is a family man, a real estate entrepreneur, investor, coach, and instructor. As a master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's Cashflow 101 game, he's inspired many to begin their journey into creating cash flow for themselves and their family. And now, here he is to offer you the tools required to earn the income desired. Your cash flow coach, Jay Massey.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I am your host, Jay Massey, and I am so glad that you're here. Let me tell you why I'm glad, though. I'm glad because today's episode is going to help you with something that trips up more entrepreneurs, more would-be entrepreneurs, more successful entrepreneurs than any other issue. It's one of the most talked about subjects in so many different books. And here's the thing. It's probably plaguing you and you don't even know it. There are probably things that are happening to you around it and you haven't been able to diagnose it. So if you can't diagnose it, you can't prescribe, you can't solve it. You don't know that it's even in your way. But what's important today is that today's guest is going to help you remove those roadblocks. Now, if this is the first time that you've joined us, again, I am so glad that you are here. If you feel like, you know what, hey, I need some additional information on becoming that bigger, better, badder real estate investor, or you want to just become a better investor in general, here's what I got for you. You're going to go over to Learn Investing Now. That's learninvestingnow.com. Complimentary course right there just for listening. It will be many hours of information that will assist you in becoming better, learning to think differently, learning to become that investor that's already inside of you. You say to yourself, you know what, Jay, I am so done with learning. I'm ready to start doing great. Totally understood. You're going to go over to Begin Investing Now. And guess what? We've got cash flowing assets sitting there right there for you so that you have the ability to talk to one of our cash flow coaches and put on the list so that way you know when we have new properties, new assets available so that you can also go out there and build your cash flow as well. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about money because that's what we're going to do today. Our guest today is what you would call your expert on money. Now, you say, what do you mean an expert on money? Well, she has this ability to help you and I understand how money affects us in ways that we haven't considered. And what we're going to unpack today is that information that will likely propel you forward faster than you've ever thought about, simply because she'll be able to remove some of the things that are in your way. Melanie Strick was also known as America's leading small business optimizer and has a gift for guiding fast-paced, overwhelmed, because that's not you and I, right? We're never overwhelmed, driven entrepreneurs to thrive in their small business with 13 years, over 13 years. Think about that. If you've ever done anything for 1 year, you're pretty good. But if you've done it for 13, you're probably awesome. So with over 13 years of mentoring thought leaders and big thinking entrepreneurs, Melanie is a liberator. And I love that. I'm set free. Liberator, uncovering costly breakdowns and derailers while re-energizing profits, ultimately freeing the entrepreneur to do more of what they do best. I hope you're paying attention. Okay? Get out that notepad and do me a favor and listen to Miss Melanie Strick. Melanie, you there?
I am. Wow. I'm listening to that thinking like, wow, who is this person? I want to meet her.
Well, that's good. Just look in the mirror. She's right there. That's good. I definitely appreciate you taking the time to invest here with the audience because I know for myself, my journey has been, interesting to say the least. And one of the things, for myself personally is when you come from a background where, money has a certain connotation that's not necessarily positive all the time, or you come from an environment, and because I always say environment trumps will. No matter how much I want to will it, there's a lot of things that could be working against me and have worked against me in the past to limit my ability and my effectiveness, all surrounding money in ways that I just did not understand. I would love it if you would please do two things. Please help us understand a little bit more of what some of those common things are. But before we go there, I want to know, who is Melanie? Where did she come from? How on earth did she get to be who she is today? What is your origin story? and how on earth, you became the expert on money that you are today.
Wow. It's so funny as you're asking me this question, I want to like have this B-roll of audio that we can pull out where the guy is doing that skit. I live in a van down by the river, and then I had this.
Yeah.
It just feels like such a great way to start this conversation. My background is a very interesting background. I actually came out of a Fortune 500 company. I worked for my first 10 to almost 14 years were for two different Fortune 500 companies, 10 of which were with a very, very large company where I learned everything I didn't want to be in life, right? And so it was great training, but I knew like 3 years in, oh my God, there's no way I can do this for the rest of my life. Because really wasn't using my genius, my creativity and in my entrepreneurial spirit. But it was great training, and I learned a lot about what it takes to be successful in business overall. So I'm glad I did it. But coming out of that environment, it was a real shock to learn how to run a business, because as much as I learned in business there, as much as I learned how to be structured and systemized and really great strategies for staying focused and planning projects and all that, which is what a lot of my clients come to me for, the one thing I didn't learn was I did not learn how to be good at financial elements of business. And my background and the way I got to the money DNA process is that I had to go through fire and brimstone to get to the point where I knew how to have the financial success, because I had two really, really powerful things happen to me early on in my career. One, I learned how to make money, and I learned how to make a lot of money. And I learned how to leverage my time and my energy. So, here's this young woman who comes out of a very protected environment where I got a safe paycheck every other week for 10 years. And I get into running my own business, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm completely flailing. And maybe, maybe some of our listeners can relate to that. Like, holy crap, I'm responsible for my own paycheck. How do I do this? And, once I figured out all the nuts and bolts, and it was a stressful time. It took me 18 months. I definitely had those moments where I wondered if I'd made the right decision. And I, at some point thought, I may have to actually go get a job to make this work. But I was really committed and very I was invested in this. I really know I'm unemployable as a rule. It's very hard for me to work for someone else.
Right.
So I had to make it work. And once I did learn how to make it work, I made it work really well. And I, quickly jumped into six figures, and then was able to make multiple six figures, and then was getting into seven figures. And then all of a sudden things collapsed. And, I have what I call the perfect storm. You can be really good at making money, but if you're not in a sustainable business model and you don't have sustainable financial practices, it doesn't matter how good you are at making money. It's very tenuous. You're very vulnerable. And I discovered that even though I had a lot of the right things going for me, that I was in a very vulnerable position. And I won't go into all the reasons why, but the biggest one is that because I had a lot of fear about money. I had a lot of fear. I had worked so hard to build up my business. And I knew, as there was a part of me that knew that things were a little tenuous. And deep down in the back of my mind, I always had this thing roaming around, what if this changes tomorrow? Or what if this falls apart? Or what if I lose my business partner? Or what if my team, fails somewhere? Well, it all failed. And it failed really big when we had the big economic shift in late 2008, early 2009. And I am a big risk taker. I take big leaps. I was taking lots of big leaps. I was taking six-figure leaps, and I was willing to put a lot on the line to grow. And I also believe in, when you put a lot on the line, you become a catalyst for others to step up and really, step into their genius and play a big game.
Yeah.
But I had too many things that all at one time blew up. I had a really big event that I was doing at the Ritz-Carlton. I had a really big, when the credit card, because nobody could plan all of this stuff. When the credit cards froze, I had a whole bunch of receivables that couldn't get collected. My business partner decided that she didn't want to move on. And so all of a sudden this, $80,000 a year program we were rolling out was completely gone, and all that cash flow went with it. And, there was about 5 or 6 things. I was highly leveraged for me at the time. And because of the receivables issue, the cash flow issue, and the the event that didn't go well because of the economic change, like I was upside down. And the pressure got so big and the fear got so big and the anxiety got so big and the worry got so big that I couldn't become resourceful enough to overcome it. Because the truth of it is, and I say this lightly, but I was only $200,000 in debt. When you're making the kind of money I was making, that isn't really astronomical.
Right.
But I became debilitated. And the reason why I share this is because I truly believe that every single person on this planet has the resourcefulness to generate any level of financial wealth they want. It's our ability to access that resourcefulness that can completely change everything in a nanosecond, everything in a week, everything in a month, everything in a year. But I was so upside down emotionally and in my stress level, I could not get it together. And, literally that's how the Money DNA process was born, because interestingly enough, I already had all the tools. I just didn't have the strength and the focus. And I didn't have what I call a mastery practice. I was being reactive instead of proactive.
Wow.
And what I realized coming out of that, because ultimately I ended up having to file bankruptcy. And I share that because I know there's a lot of people that came out of that time period and still are at some point battling some pretty big financial demons. And I took myself through a process of, and again, this is something I teach in a program I call Money DNA Mastery, because there will become a time for every single business owner on this planet where we have to look at our numbers and we have to make some really, really tough decisions. And one of the decisions I had to make was, do I start fresh and start with a more resourceful, more powerful approach? Or do I figure out how to rise above this? And trying to rise above it was making it worse. And clearing the decks, I decided that, if one good thing could come out of it, because let me tell you, it was very humbling for me to file and to do what I did, because here I am, like I'm a business coach, I'm a success coach, and filing bankruptcy. I kind of got upside down here, and I kind of had to go through my own mental shit about, all right, now what do I do with this to turn this into an asset and to make this something that I can give to others. So that's why Money DNA was born. And that, it actually made me a better mentor and a better coach. And it really strengthened my ability to teach people better strategies around financial wealth building and, business development overall.
Wow. See, this is why I say take notes. This is why I say get your notepad, because in that little section of time, I hope you heard, here's some of the things that I picked up just in case you missed it. The first job she got, they were for education more than they were for compensation. Yes, she earned a lot of money, but she learned things. Get the job for the education. But even more important than that, you've heard me say to you guys, no one has a money problem. Everyone has an idea problem. And one of the things that chokes ideas is fear. And it's amazing to me, Melanie, that you were able to put yourself in this situation and see and recognize that, because that's one of the things that people ask, how did you guys, get through it? And the only thing that allowed the resourcefulness to come to the top was to have techniques and abilities to push away and subside and not focus on the things that we were afraid of, so that those new ideas could actually take root and help us to develop new patterns, new things, to be able to come up, and just be able to move. And I like what you said about sustainable financial practices, because most of the time at least when I hear the word sustainable, people are usually talking about food and don't use plastic and cars.
Right.
But so talk to us a little bit. What's a sustainable financial practice?
Well, it's funny. I've been doing this a long time, as you mentioned earlier, and I've seen some interesting dynamics over the years. And I see some people who, like me, can get really good at making money. But just because you're good at making money doesn't mean you're good at keeping money or continuing to cycle money. And what I notice is a lot of entrepreneurs tend to have huge paydays and then lose it all. And so a sustainable financial practice means you know how to manage the flow of money in a way that allows it to build, circulate, and generate more wealth.
Nice.
And that means you have a certain skill set and a system to not just make money, but make money make more money, and to leverage money as a tool instead of just making it and then spending it all or losing it all or whatever it is you do. And that's what I see a lot of really smart, really talented people doing in the what we will call it the entrepreneur world. And I'll put investing in there because I think investing is a form of being an entrepreneur. And what happens is that we tend to beat ourselves up over time because, like, why can't I keep the money? Why is money coming and then going? And it's interesting. My very, very first experience of that was as a teenager. And my boyfriend's dad at the time was into investments, and he was a serial entrepreneur, tended to go into a lot of different investments. And so he was a real estate investor, he was a business investor, and a couple other endeavors. And what I noticed is he'd have these huge paydays, and then he would be broke for months. And during that time, he got really nervous and he'd make a lot of really bad decisions. And then he'd get a big payday and he'd be fine for a while, but he would spend it all because for him, the identity of having money was wrapped around being able to spend it. He didn't understand how to build real wealth. So it was a very fascinating teaching for me early on, which I didn't really know what to do until much later, but I see it a lot.
Right. And that was the whole genesis for me pursuing cash flow, because cash flow isn't, well, sexy, and it's not what you put in the, you don't see, ooh, let's talk about rental property on TV. On HGTV, you see fix and flip and make $50,000 in 12 seconds or less, and people want that, and which is good. I'm not saying there isn't a place for that. What I am saying, however, is that what you're saying is way more attractive because it's a sustainable financial practice. You know, people didn't start listening to what I was doing until we were at 100 units, and then they were like, hold on, what a minute, what do you mean, how many? that began to get their
Right.
attention, because now what it took them to do from a fix and flip standpoint, we were doing on a monthly basis, whether we fixed or flipped or nothing. It didn't really matter. What mattered was the ability to go out there and get the income to keep coming in sustainably. And I love the fact that I like the words. I think I'm going to use this sustainable financial practice. That's going to find its way many, many, many times over the next episodes, just because it's the truth. And you got the lesson so early. It's funny that sometimes we get these lessons, we don't even understand them until later. But hey, you got it, and that's good. Now,
Can I say something else about that before we
by
move
all
on?
means. Go ahead.
I was just thinking as you're talking about it, it's funny that most people who are entrepreneurial by nature, we tend to seek bright, shiny objects, right? We're constantly looking to express new ideas, new
Yeah.
ways to get stuff happening. What happens is that's not sustainable. And it's actually the less profitable, more energy expended approach. When you're in a sustainable financial model, what happens is you actually use less energy, you're more productive, and you're more profitable because what you build, you're actually doing something with it that builds on top of itself. So investments are obviously a really great way to do that, but everybody in any business niche on the planet has to understand the difference between chasing ideas and creating something that has the ability to have longevity to it. And it's just a different mindset.
Yeah, well, and that's what I noticed when I was going to networking groups. It was the people who had sustainability, the people who could outlast ups and downs, were those that had rental property of varying degrees. I mean, there are many different classes of rental property and all these other things. Yes, I get that. But they all apply a different system to them and still be able to produce income. But one of the things that I know we were talking about before, and you've hinted at, is that there's a specific way of thinking, but more importantly, a specific way of doing things or habits that, a successful investor or a successful business owner or a successful entrepreneur either has or would develop over time. Talk to us a little bit about what you see, when you survey all of your clients, those who have come to you, let's call one, the investor who or the entrepreneur who needs all kinds of help, what his or her habits are, and then the ones who go on to great success, what habits do they develop that carry them there?
Well, I think it can be different depending on your industry, but let me give you some ones that I see that kind of go beyond a niche and can be really important for anyone. And the first one, and I'm going to go a little bit into what we might call the psychology of sustainable success for a minute.
Okay.
And I have noticed over and over and over again that the people who have what I call a blueprint for thriving, there's actually 7 blueprints that I teach in How to Recode Your Money DNA, because I think when we understand where we are, we can do a better job of navigating how to get to the next level of our success. And ultimately, I think we all like the idea of thriving, but most of us are shooting ourselves in the foot or really, self-sabotaging that because we're doing all the wrong things, hoping to get the right results. And, thrivers, they all have a mindset that is focused on what's possible instead of what's not. And I think you alluded to this in the introduction of, where's your mindset? And I've noticed that overall, and this was a huge shift for me because I did not grow up with this mentality. I did not grow up with this way of doing things. I had to learn how. I'm at what is called a negative processor. I can see all the problems around me at all the times. And I am a away from motivated person, which means I literally see what I don't want and move away from it. So I have all this stuff working against me at all times, right? It's like
Wow.
I literally had to retrain my brain, and this is why I think this is so powerful. And by the way, I came from an impoverished family too. Like I
see.
literally grew up on the borderline of poverty, so I didn't have this blueprint of thriving as a child to leverage either.
Right.
So I'm self-taught in this way. And the attitude is that you have to focus on what's possible. You have to be willing to cut through and find the opportunities inside of every situation. And I notice overall, that's what highly successful, sustainably successful people do. They're focused on opportunity inside of problems. And it's a huge mind flip for a lot of people to do that. So that's one thing you've got to focus on what is working. And another way to you probably have heard the saying, an attitude of gratitude. Well, there's actually a lot of science behind reprogramming yourself to focus on what you're grateful for every day. And, when things were really bad and I knew I was probably going to have to file bankruptcy, my head was so focused on the problems. This is how excruciating it was for me. I literally every day would get up and all I would see is mountains of bills. I was getting all these bills in the mail. I had people calling me going, any idea when we're going to be able to get paid? And I'm like, I was overwhelmed, problem after problem after problem after problem after problem. And I felt like I was sinking. And I know I'm not alone. There's a lot of people that go through this.
Yeah.
Even if it's not bills, it's, sometimes all you can see and feel are the problems. And I literally had this snap to moment when I realized that and by the way, here was the other thing that was happening. I was having phone calls with potential clients and they'd be like, I can't really afford this right now. And I'd be like, oh my God, everybody's broke. And all I could see was my broke people and everybody was showing up were broke people. And I'm like, oh my God, how is this ever going to change? I talked to friends that are like, can you believe the economy? It's horrible.
Right.
All right. I look around and I notice there was a certain select group of people that were making 7 figures. Things seemed to be going just fine. And I said to myself, all right, hold on. They're making money. I'm struggling. What's going on here? Mm-hmm. And I realized the only difference between me and them was the story they had bought into. They were focused on the gratitude. They were focused on what was possible. They were focused on abundance no matter what. And they were charging the people that were saying no to me 3 times what I was going to charge them, and they were saying yes to them. And I realized that in every single moment, our attitude is forming our altitude. What we are focused on is what we are going to attract and say yes to. And it's just based on whatever story we're telling ourselves, because we're going to run around and collect evidence for it. So if you want to be more successful, you've got to form the habit of focusing on what's possible. And the third piece of this, and this is one of the pillars I teach in Money DNA because it was so extraordinary for me, was you have to choose what you allow in to your mindset and your environment. I truly believe that your environment is constantly dictating your financial frequency. Whatever financial level you're at right now, your environment and what you're letting in is dictating that as your truth, because that's what you expect and that's what you're going to surround yourself with, because that's what feels normal. It's your financial set point. And whether it's conscious or unconscious, you will surround yourself with everything that feels comfortable in exactly what you have right now. And the only way things started to shift for me was I consciously chose to infuse what I call high wealth consciousness, high vibration people, and people who are up to really big things and were going to stretch me in going where I needed to go instead of staying complacent and comfortable with the experience I was having. And it was a profound shift because daily I had hypnosis I was doing meditation, I was doing visualization, I was doing affirmations, and I was reading, and then I was only having conversations with people who were at least where I wanted to be or beyond, so that I could pull myself back up like a magnet, just snapping me back to where I was supposed to be. And within 3 months of me having that shift is when the money started flowing back in again. It was literally like just changing what I allowed around me. Everything turned around.
Oh my gosh. I'm having so much fun taking notes and writing this down because I want everyone to hear something. How much of what she just said had to do with some sort of technical knowledge about how to execute business, fill out a paperwork, or write a contract or anything. It had so little to do with it. You've heard me say things like, where there's chaos, there is cash flow. She said where opportunity inside of problems is just it's the same thing. In that same 2008 window, that's when the system broke enough to allow me to see opportunity inside of problems or chaos inside of cash flow, and developing that attitude of gratitude. Those things change your focus about what you see when you're looking at it. Two people could be looking at the same thing and walk away with completely different impressions simply because their mind is focused on something completely different. When you're focused on abundance and possibility, the possibilities literally become endless. It's just, they're everywhere. You can't help but see it. That's probably my greatest challenge today. Everywhere I go, everything I see an opportunity. I see a business. I see a real estate deal. I see something that's there. But please hear this key thing. Choose what you let in. I couldn't have said it better, because it is a choice. You don't have to have the things that are coming into you come into you. It's all about choosing. And when you make that conscious choice to let something different in, other than what the friends or individuals around you are letting in, that begins to change the direction where you go. I think, Melanie, you are also an expert at discipline and self-will in such a way that I hope many people are listening, because those are the things that you made conscious decisions. It didn't just magically happen. And because of that, you've got power beyond measure, and that power is accessible to each and every one of us. Thank you for being an example.
Yeah, you're welcome. And there's a very practical reason why this works, because some people might go, oh, that's just woo woo, or, like whatever, that mindset stuff. I want to give you a very practical reason why this works. For a minute, I want you to think of something that really sucks in your life, right? So, we can do this right now. And as you're listening, I just want you to think of something that sucks. I want you to notice how your body feels. Do you feel like a little heavier? Probably feel very motivated. You might be slumping over. It's like it has a physical impact on your body. Now I want you to think of something you're really excited about, something you're grateful for, something that just brings joy to you. Even if it's the sun came out today, or, you're going home to someone you love, or, that you have another day on this planet. It can be sometimes that simple. It might be all you can find. But if you can focus on that thing, now feel your body. You start to feel a little lighter. You have more energy flowing through your body. The practical reason why that's so important is that when it comes to focusing on opportunity, if you're in constriction and negativity and stress, your body is shutting down. You are not in action mode. You're in retraction mode. And that's why we can't see possibilities, and why we don't take action, and why, you can stand in one square and your friend's staying in the other square, and you see the same thing and they're taking action and you're not. It's because of the effect it's having on your body, your focus, and your momentum and your inspiration. So I noticed that was huge for me, that the stress was literally debilitating me and causing a lot of illness and other stress-related disorder. And that's a very practical reason why I find that learning how to recode your money DNA, getting your mindset in the right place, upgrading your success blueprint, and all those things that go along with it, it actually brings you energy, which brings you momentum, which brings you action and results.
You know what I'm thinking right now? I'm thinking
Right.
they were going, I thought this was going to be about making money. What?
But we can get there because there are practical, logical
Okay.
things you do on the other side of this that do add to the formula. But here's the thing I've noticed, and you probably noticed this too. You can give somebody a strategy and a
Yeah,
technique to make money. But if your mindset's not in the right place, you cannot fulfill it properly. You cannot
no,
execute it properly. So
right.
you will underperform and under earn as a result.
I
That's why I find this so valuable.
I know I'm 100. I wrote an article on a while ago, and the title was "You Will Never Out Earn Your Personal Growth."
Mm,
Period.
juicy.
You just won't out earn your personal growth. I mean, the technicals of how to do business, that's likely the easiest part. The technicals, the strategies, those things are there. That's why I often ask everybody to answer the questions in this order: why, what, when, who, and how. With those 5 questions in that order, you can build any business. But notice how is the last one. How is nowhere near as important as starting with why, as Simon Sinek would say. And when you get all of those questions answered, a lot of it has more to do with you internally and how you go out and show up in the marketplace than the actual what you're doing, because you're now able to follow through in such a way that you have never been empowered to do before. And I think that's the genius behind what you're doing, is that you're able to take something like, even in this session that we've been here, if you've been listening and you've been feeling, if you were feeling negative and down when Melanie was talking, you experienced something. Because if you moved at the speed of instruction, like we've always talked about, you experienced something. You experienced the shift in minutes. Change does not require that you submit to this long, arduous process that must take years and decades. It can happen inside of a podcast episode, like it's happening right now. And so I've got to know now, what is this? You've made reference to it. What is this money DNA? Tell us about that. How does that work? You've said blueprints, and I'm sitting, when you say blueprints to me, I start thinking about apartment buildings and commercial structures, cell phone towers and stuff. So I'm assuming that's not what you're talking about. Share with us a little bit. All right. Now, as you can tell, having fun, as we always do here at the Cashflow Diary. That's why you guys keep listening. And I'm grateful for that. But guess what? We're closer. I have held the book in my hand. So for those of you who have already pre-ordered, congratulations. Your pre-order will be shipping very, 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 very soon. Just waiting for the larger bulk orders that we've already placed to actually get here. For those of you who have not yet pre-ordered the book, yeah, go over to cashflowdiary.com/book. Cashflowdiary.com/book. Look at the book. Download the sample chapter. Begin to understand a little bit more about the story, etc., and how all of that's working together. Or if you want, and if you're listening right now on your phone or iPad or anything of that nature, got your phone nearby and you're not near a computer, so you can't go over to cashflowdiary.com/book. Go ahead and send in a text message. Send in the keyword. The keyword is book, BOOK, to 949-682-3565. Again, 949-682-3565. And the keyword is book. And what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and ask for name and email address and send over to you the links that I'm talking about, to where you can watch the video, download the sample chapters. We'll send the sample chapters directly to you. And I'm telling you guys, it's absolutely fun right now to hear the responses that you guys are sending in and talking about when you're reading the chapters, etc. So please keep sending them in. Now, when you're listening to this today, I don't know when you're listening to this today, but some of you, if you were a part of our deal reviews, we do deal reviews on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific time, where it's live. You get to watch me, answer your questions. So hopefully you've been able to participate in those. This particular weekend, as I've said before, we're going to be headed up to the Sacramento area, going to be doing a cash flow game. And if all the technology worked properly, we will be broadcasting said cash flow game. So if you've ever wondered how on earth, you've heard it said in the announcements many times, master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow 101 game, well, now you get to watch. And hopefully the technology works. And then if so, you can watch as well. We'll be broadcasting it over at the site on cashflowdiary.tv. And we're also going to be doing a speaking engagement this weekend where, if everything goes as planned, we'll be able to broadcast those things too. For those of you who are already, members of the Cashflow Diary site, you know that you don't have to watch live. You'll be able to have access to the recordings, et cetera, all these fun things. So hopefully that provides additional value to all of you. And I'm excited for all the things that are coming. You've got the book. There's just stuff coming that I can't even begin to tell you guys about. But right now, let's get back to the interview.
Okay, so let's talk about a blueprint for a minute, and then I'll talk about how it relates to your money DNA. So I have learned, and I've seen this in myself and everybody I've mentored over the years, is that we all have some kind of a blueprint that runs. And like a blueprint to design a home or an apartment building, or when I worked for Motorola, we were doing blueprints and architectural layouts and designing, very sophisticated communication systems. There is a roadmap for that. Well, we as human beings, the way we process the world is like a blueprint. And that blueprint is formed as a young person so that we have a way to process information and make decisions. And the blueprint that you have right now is dictating the level of financial and business success that you can create. So if you want to know what your blueprint is, all you have to do is look at your results you're getting and basically look at that and say, this blueprint is designed to get me this. So this blueprint is designed to keep me stuck. It's designed to keep me overwhelmed. It's designed to keep me busy. It's designed to keep me in thriving, whatever that is. We all have our own blueprint. And, they all have a purpose. It's just that most of them are very low purposes. Like they don't really have like the life we want. They're designed to basically keep us safe or keep us broke or keep us in struggle or whatever that blueprint was about. And, without going too deep into the psychology right now, if that's something you're interested in, I can share later, where you can go deeper into it. Because I'm fascinated by this stuff. Like once I learned this, it was like everything became possible.
Right.
You can control your mind. You can control anything. Like when you learn how to manage and channel the energy inside of you, you're unstoppable. And, what I found was that your blueprint is actually formed at a time when we have our first real experience around money or success. And for most of us, it's a negative experience. We don't necessarily grow up having all these beautiful, wonderful experiences around money. I would say a good 80% of the people on this planet have had something in their childhood where they went, oh no, if that's what money's about, I don't want any part of that. Or they have like some horrible uncle or family member that's constantly torturing their parents about money, or, they get indoctrinated into them through a religion or community or some kind of a, family system that, when you have money, people are going to think you're horrible. And so don't get too much money, or there's some kind of thing that goes on where it's like, don't earn more than mom or dad, because then you're going to be greedy. And we don't like greedy people. You're going to be shunned from the family. There's all kinds of belief systems and values placed on money and success in our world. And you can be a very smart, very capable person and have a very poor performing blueprint. And so what I found for myself is that I actually had a struggle blueprint, because that's what was modeled to me as a child. Everybody in my family, except for my grandparents, literally struggled. My grandparents just were very frugal people, and they happened to amass a lot of money over the years. And they were business owners and entrepreneurs and invested well. And they had a Thrive blueprint. They modeled for me something, but I didn't know how to replicate it because nobody ever talked about money. Nobody ever taught me the strategy. It just poof, it was there. And that wasn't very helpful. So that, and how it relates to money DNA is I realized that our blueprint is actually a collection of thoughts, ideas, habits, and systems that come together to produce the financial and success output. And you can actually recode your money DNA to have a higher level of a blueprint, a more profitable or a more enjoyable blueprint by recoding the thoughts, beliefs, habits, and systems that you use. And I'm living proof. I've done it actually twice in my life. And each time I did it, the first time I did it, I learned how to produce six figures. Unfortunately, I was doing it with I had a busy addict blueprint at the time. So it wasn't a sustainable model. And when I went through the second wave, which was when I filed the bankruptcy, I realized that I now have a Thrive blueprint, because the way I create the same level of success I had then is to do it with less effort and more joy and more peace and more fulfillment than I ever had before. And I do it in a way that my business is designed to create the lifestyle I want, so that I can work 3.5 to 4 days a week, sometimes maybe a little bit more if I've got big stuff going on. But I take a lot of time off. I don't stress out. If I don't like what I'm doing, I don't do it. I find another way to do it. I have a very leveraged business, and I've specifically created my business to give me the lifestyle I want. I can ramp it up. I can ramp it down. It's just designed to get me and to have the impact I want and to do the things that I love. So that's how Money DNA it works, and why it's so pivotal to your ability to do the right things at the right time. And I think it's such an important piece of this puzzle is you can do the right things at the wrong time. Right. You can be doing the wrong things, trying to get the right results, and get really frustrated and overwhelmed. And the blueprint has to shift in order to get you better results with less effort.
Indeed. Oh, I love that. Better results with less effort. I hope you are listening, because many of you have heard me say that I'm a lifestyle investor, and what that and you think that has something to do with like shiny cars and watches and all these other things. It has more to do with the fact that I protect my time, because I've got 4 kids and a wife, and I'd like to keep them. So therefore, in order to make that happen, certain things that it predisposes me to certain types of transactions and deals, and most importantly, using property managers and systems and leverage a whole lot more through systems, people, and teams that create the ability to go out there, so that I know that if I want to, I can still go on a cruise for a week, and I don't have to apply for time off, and the office isn't going to fall apart. And I hear you saying the exact same thing. And that's what I love about it, is that all of those things are conscious decisions. And each one of you listening right now to Melanie and myself, you have the ability. You have already been given the ability to make these conscious decisions immediately, today, in this second. You need no further permission to move forward in upgrading those thoughts, ideas, habits, and systems. So if you would you say, and I'm just kind of curious now, because you used a term called financial frequency earlier, mm-hmm. and is your financial frequency related to the thoughts, ideas, habits, and systems? Mm-hmm. Is there a tie-in between those two?
Yeah. So again, I take you back to that exercise of think a thought about something that you're not enjoying, then think a thought about something that you are enjoying. That, and again, you can't do it in 2 seconds. You really have to feel into it. But if you really feel into and what it is that you're excited about, or something that's a problem, your body will shift. You literally will become more stressed out or more excited based on what you're giving attention to. And what that does is, and again, this is science. This is not, something I made up, but this is science, is that your body is made up of energy, and those energy molecules emit a certain frequency. And if you don't like what's showing up in your life, because a lot of people say, Melanie, I'm doing all the right things, but why am I getting all this stuff? Well, I can literally, if you have a life that you're attracting a lot of challenges, you feel like people are doing bad things to you, maybe you have a story about I always have bad luck, people always take advantage of me, I can literally go to that frequency, and then I'll have a session with somebody, and I'll find they have a certain set of core beliefs that they are consciously or unconsciously thinking to themselves all the time. And it literally is running their blueprint. And so because they see the world in that way, they emit a certain frequency. Their collection of thoughts and habits and strategies and systems emit a certain frequency. And it will, like a magnet, attract in those things that are of like energy. And, I am a very practical, logical person. Let me just be really clear. If you came to me and said, Melanie, are you kind of on the woo-woo side, or are you really practical and logical? People would say she's very logical, Yeah. But one of my greatest breakthroughs was realizing that if I wanted to change the results I was getting in my life, I had to change who I was being and what was going on the inside. And it is like fascinating how certain thoughts and patterns that I shifted inside of me almost instantaneously started to shift the type of opportunities that come to me. So, on a very practical, logical level, we can look at this and say, well, people are going to experience me differently when I'm coming from a different place mentally. And I'm more attractive to them. There's something that I'll say or a certain way that I'll show up, or, people just like to be in my presence because they feel so positive and inspired, and people want to bring opportunities to people they like to do business with. And so on a very practical, logical level, when you're changing your thought patterns and you're upgrading your blueprint and you're playing a bigger game, and you're enjoyable to be around and you're inspiring people and you're on fire and it's contagious, that's part of why it works on a very just like left brain level. You change the inside, you're going to start showing up differently. People want some of that. It will blow your mind what starts to come your way by just simply shifting and getting yourself in alignment with a higher quality of thought pattern and mindset.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly why no one, including you, has a money problem. And everyone has an idea problem. It's just amazing to me how how much power we have. I mean, first and foremost, because that was not something between kindergarten and 12th grade I was ever told. However, once you learn these types of things, you have the ability to use them. You could get to use the force for good, okay, and that's what we're gonna do, all
Yes.
right? And we go out there and we have the ability to create the change, to be the catalyst that individuals are looking for, and that's what gets so exciting to me. Is that you're going to be the same today except for two things, right? 5 years from now, you're going to be the same 5 years from now as you are today except for the two things, right? The books you read and the people you meet. And we have met an incredible person because she made incredible decisions that has allowed her to become this incredible resource for you and I. And those are the things that you may miss if you're not paying attention. But I'm kind of curious. Okay, so you've piqued my curiosity. You've got me in this position where if I want to go to that next level, because I had very many similar things in the sense of, coming from, not a spoon-fed life, but the first goals and plans that we wrote out, which I thought was going to take like a decade to reach, when it happened in 2 or 3 years, I was like, now what? And then we've had to readjust and go to higher levels of thoughts, ideas, habits, and systems. And so my question to you is twofold. If I've never done anything, what are some of those thoughts, ideas, habits, and systems that I might want to begin to adopt? Or if I'm at a certain level and I'm listening to you today and I want to go to that next level, how do I uncover what those new thoughts, ideas, habits, and systems are to help me get there?
Yeah, great question. So let me give you a couple things that worked for me. And I'll even share, if it's okay with you, a free training that I think will really kind of help pull it all together no matter where you're at. It kind of takes you through the entire sequence from start to finish, which we wouldn't have time to do today, but
Right.
we can be really helpful for
Well,
you if you want to go deeper with this.
I have a feeling that if I don't let you share it, I'm going to get emails. Why didn't you let Melanie say it? So yes, absolutely. By all means. Yes, I want that to happen.
Okay, well, just share that real quick fast so I don't forget. It's if you go to money-dna.com/webinar, and you can pick whatever time. There's different ones scheduled throughout the week. You can listen in on this training, and it's about 90 minutes. But the reason why is I take you completely through the whole cycle. So you can go there and check it out, and this will really take this to a much deeper level than I can do justice to right now. But let me give you some practical things you could take away with you right now. One thing I do every day, and by the way, I will fully admit there are some days here and there that I just wake up and like I have to hit the ground running, and it does blow up a little bit. So I'm not perfect, but I want to say that because some people are like, oh, Melanie, I can never do this every day. You know what? It's about doing it 99%, right? I get up and I actually do a series of visualizations and meditation to set the tone for how I want my energy to go throughout the day. And the reason why I do it is I as a human being, I can go into an anxiety provoking place very easy. I like for things to go right. I like for things to be under my control. I like for my systems to work. And guess what? Life does not always deliver that. So
No, you too? Really? No
no,
way.
right? But when I take control of my energy by setting the tonality of how I want my day to go from the get-go, everything is better. So that's one thing. The second thing I do is I read every day something that inspires me. It can be for a minute. It can be for 20 minutes. It depends on how much time I have. Because one of the things I do, I don't start my day before 9 o'clock usually. Sometimes I don't start it till noon. And I use that time to really plug me into what I want to be thinking about. And so, that's part of my ritual. Part of my ritual, and this might blow your mind. You're like, Melanie, again, we're not talking about making money. Guess what? I'm talking about how to be resourceful enough to see the money-making opportunities when they show up. The third thing I do is I eat very clean. What does that mean? I don't eat sugar, I don't eat dairy, and I don't eat wheat. Once in a great while I'll have wheat. I just kind of like, I need some bread, whatever, but that's very rare. And why? Because I find for my body, those items produce stress and they make my brain foggy. When I eat clean, my brain is clear. I am focused. I am 10 times more productive. And I choose to produce more high quality experiences in my life by staying very focused. Like I'm a hyper productive person because I keep my body really clean. And, I work out and do other things. But those are 4 things that I do on the inside. Now, what do I do on the outside? I have a series of systems that I use, and it's kind of hard to explain verbally, but I'll try to kind of paint a picture. Is I have a process for how I make decisions. Why? Because every decision I make is affecting my time, my energy, and my financial flow. Here's a little quote to write down. Everything I say yes to means I'm saying no to something else. So if I'm saying yes to something for time, money, or energy, that means, infinitely, I don't have infinite time, money, and energy yet. So something isn't going to get my attention. Something isn't going to get that investment. And am I investing in the right place for my business to move forward? So I'm constantly evaluating that. That's one of my systems for how to stay on track and to stay in a thriving blueprint. And if I say yes to this, am I going to feel like I'm thriving, or am I going to feel like I'm depleted or busy or, avoiding something? And I just am constantly evaluating that. I'm also using a system to project where money's coming from and where money's going. Would you believe that over 60% of business owners have no strategy or system for evaluating their financial flow?
Yes, I would believe that.
Yeah. And that's why you are having high cash flow days and low cash flow days, why you have a good month and then why you have 6 bad months, because you don't have a strategy for evaluating how your effort is going to translate into financial flow at certain times of the year. And I have a system that I teach people in my Money DNA process because I find that this one little habit, this one little system we do differently can have a huge impact on your overall cash flow and a huge ability for you to make better decisions and also strategize what's going to get your yes and what's going to get your no. And then the last thing that I'm doing is I'm what I would consider an optimizer. In fact, my title is America's Leading Small Business Optimizer, but I'm optimizing you and me as a person as well. And that means I'm looking at every single thing that gets my attention, and I'm looking at everything in the business, and I'm asking myself, is this producing enough profit? Is it at the highest level of profit it can be? Is there anything I can do to make it perform better before I create anything else? And why is that important? Because that's how you get more results with less effort. You make what you have perform better. It requires a little bit of patience. It requires some different muscles than most of us are used to using. But it is the only way to actually generate the level of success and enjoy a lifestyle that most entrepreneurs crave.
Oh, you had to go and use the P word. Now, that patience thing, really?
Oh, I think they profit.
Well, that's a good one, but it's that other one
Yeah.
that I know I personally fall into all the time, because I get into this constant mode of creation. No matter, it's just it doesn't. I don't even have to try. It just happens. It's a constant mode of creation, and it's like stop, focus, and shiny object syndrome is definitely something that I am guilty of all the time. But having learned to discipline and focus on that thing, that's been great. So I definitely appreciate everything that you've been able to bring to us. If you could, I've two things. One, share with us one more time how we can get access to that training, and definitely I want you to think about that person who maybe is listening to this type of information for the first time, and tell them, give us an idea of what you think they're, maybe they're still like, is this for real? How's this really going to work? Mm-hmm. What would you say to them to get them to actually go in that direction so that they can at least experience what you have to offer?
Mm-hmm. Great question. Okay, so it's money-dna, just like the DNA in your body, .com/webinar. And, here's what I always tell people. If you are happy with the results you have, don't do anything different. You don't need to break something that's not broken. But I would think 99% of the people I meet would like something more. And the question you have to ask yourself is, what do you have to lose? Literally, what do you have to lose in order to find a way to become more successful from the inside out? Because here's the thing. On the outside, you can always learn more strategies. There's always more marketing. There's always more sales techniques. There's always more investment strategies. There's always more that you can do. But if you could be someone that allowed themselves to automatically generate higher levels of wealth without having to do as much, would that be a valuable tool to have in your toolbox for the rest of your life?
Yes.
And then what if you knew that it's way more than money? It's actually about life fulfillment. And that if you learned a technique and a tool that actually not just allowed you to have a better relationship with money and success, but actually allowed you to have a better, more fulfilling life overall, would that be worth it? Would you be willing to just learn something new, to discover a different way to move through the process of life? I think if you're a listener of the show, you have to say yes, because that's the whole principle of the Cashflow Diary, right? Is, how do you improve the personal performance? How do you improve the business performance without having to work so hard? That's what this is all about.
Exactly. I definitely appreciate, again, the time that you've invested here. Hopefully, everyone listening to yourself and me right now, they feel not just motivated, but encouraged and inspired to go out there and make something happen. Again, thank you very much for your time and your knowledge and sharing your expertise here.
Thank you for having me. And I've just really enjoyed connecting with you and everyone who's listening in.
Awesome. Now, everybody, you know what it's time for, right? It is time for you to move at the speed of instruction. You know in your gut what you need to do. So go get it done. Now is the time to go out there and write that next offer. Now is the time to go out there and go to those links to watch that webinar, to make these things happen, because it's incremental steps done consistently over time that eventually get you to where you want to be and put you in a situation to where you can't even begin to imagine what is possible for yourself. I've had a great time here again on another episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast. Hopefully you have too, and I will talk to all of you again. Until next time.
Thank you for investing your time with Jay Massey and the Cashflow Diary. When you have a moment, please visit iTunes and leave a positive comment about the show. And go now to our website, CashFlowDiary.com, to take advantage of our free business building course, Cashflow Foundation. Gain the knowledge, understanding, and skill that will teach you how to never need a job again. Until next time.